Hello dear colleagues and friends, my name is Ankar and this is the new video and lesson plan for listening and speaking enriched with technology. At this point, I have already went over some of the warm-up and objectives and I will be doing some instructing and modeling. So dear students, we are done with our objectives. Do you guys have any questions? If you do, please raise your hands. I'll be clarifying them right now. Or if there is anything that you are confused about so far in the lesson, let me know. Yes, please. That is correct. We will have a listening activity where we will be listening to a story. That's correct. Yes, please. Yes. Also, we will be divided into groups where you guys will have to come up with a story on your own and you'll have to act it out in front of the class. I'm sure you guys will be excited for that. Let's see. In that case, let's just jump into it. As I mentioned, today we will be covering the 5 elements of the plot. By the way, do you guys know what are the 5 elements of the plot? Yes, please? That is correct. How about you? Yes, that is also true. Very nice. You guys have almost mentioned all of them to my surprise. However, I would like you to please take a note on these ones because later on in the class, we will be needing them to identify the elements of the story that we will be listening to, okay? Therefore, let's begin with the first one. So the first element of the story is called the exposition. What is an exposition? Exposition is basically where characters and setting and maybe some conflict is introduced at the beginning of the story. Also, we can say that exposition is somewhat a background information on what is going to happen in the story. The second element is called the rising actions. So we have the introduction, then we have the rising action. So maybe some new characters are introduced, maybe some new conflicts are introduced. Basically, this rising action is taking us to a peak point of the story, which is called the climax. And the climax is the third element of the plot. So basically, it is a peak moment and a lot of unanswered questions are being answered during that point. It's probably the most exciting part of a story, okay? After the climax, we have the falling action. So what happens during the falling action is probably, it's basically things are settling down and the following actions or events are basically about how the story is going to conclude, okay? And finally, we have the fifth element, which is the resolution. What is the resolution? Resolution is basically the end of the story. So depending on the author or the story, it could be a happy ending or a sad ending. It could be tragic, you know. So let me repeat that one more time. 5 elements. We have the exposition, we have the rising action, we have the climax, we have the falling action, and we have the resolution. Please keep those in mind. We will be needing them. Now, for some activity together, we will be breaking down one of the famous fairy tales as a group together with me. However, in order to do that, we need to make sure that all of you students are familiar with some of the stories. For example, does anyone don't know about the story called the Rapunzel? Rapunzel. 5 students. Okay, we cannot do this activity with you guys. However, let's try to pick another story. How about Hansel and Gretel? Have you guys, all of you heard about this story? 2 people haven't. Okay, not a problem. Let's try another one. How about a story about Little Red Riding Hood? Okay, probably this is the story that we're gonna do because I see all of your hands are up, okay? So since you guys know this story, I would like to keep it even shorter, okay? For the sake of this exercise, we learned about the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the resolution. Let's do this together. So what is the exposition of the story of Little Red Riding Hood? Yes, please. So there is this girl. She has a basket of food. That is correct. And she's going to take it to her grandmother's house, right? So where does she go to? Like, she goes through something, right? It was a forest, I believe, or woods. Yes. And also what happens in the woods? She meets a wolf, okay? So that would be the exposition for the Little Red Riding Hood. What happens after? So we call this the rising action. Actually, I have a sheet over here. As you can see, we finished the exposition. Now we are looking forward to the rising action. So she is meeting a wolf in the woods, right? What does this wolf do? He tries to figure out where is she going. After that, he knows that she's going to her grandmother's house. He himself tries to be there earlier than the Red Riding Hood. So once he comes to the house, he eats the grandmother and acts as if he is the grandmother now, right? So now we have this rising action. What happens after rising action is the climax. So the climax portion of the story, yes, please. So the Little Red Riding Hood, she comes to the house. She sees this grandmother, but she has questions, right? Why is your eyes so big? Why are your ears so big? And why is your mouth so big? At that moment, the wolf eats the Little Red Riding Hood. That's the climax of the story. So after climax, we have the falling action. What happens next? Do you guys remember? That is correct. So there is this man, the woodman, I think we call him. This woodman arrives at the house and he realizes that something is wrong. There is no grandmother and there is this big wolf. And what's the resolution? So how does the story end? Basically, this woodman kills the wolf and grandmother and the Little Red Riding Hood comes out of the wolf and they live happily ever after. That is the story. You guys did a very good job. Now we will do two activities. For the first one, we will listen to a story called The Room. I will not project it through the projector. We will just use our speakers. This story is very short, approximately 5 to 6 minutes, as I believe, and I want you to pay close attention, and also, while you're listening to it, please take notes and consider what is the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the resolution of that particular story, okay? And now we are done. You guys did a great job. I will be collecting those after the final activity, which is going to be happening right now. So I would like each and one of you divide into groups of 4 people, okay? And after that, you guys must come up with your own story. It could be about anything, about Superman, about maybe villains, about a time where you went to snowboard, or anything that comes to your mind, okay? And you guys will have characters in them. So if you are 4 people in a group, each should have a role, because you will be acting this story out and you'll be performing this story in front of your classmates, okay? You guys have 10 minutes for this activity, please.